Hi, I'm Leah Iridium. Hope everyone's doing fine today. So, I'm going to carry on with the new series A to Z of heavy rock and metal. So, if you don't know the gist of this one, if this is the first time watching this series, I'm looking at more obscure, underrated, overlooked bands, musicians, whatever it may be. It can cover a vast majority of stuff, but mainly I want to aim it at that sort of thing, you know, not the most famous bands. These are bands that a lot of people have heard of. There might be the odd person that hasn't, or they're, like I said, they're underrated, overlooked. So looking at 4 artists today, 4 bands. So first band out of Sweden. Man, how good is Sweden when it comes to rock and metal? Out of Sweden, a band called Crash Diet.
Blazing through the deserts and under bloody skies, the world is lost its fight with those who grieve in their eyes. Victors of the war in the desecrated land, with the torches in the hills, we are the children of the dead. Like diamonds in the rough, a legacy we trust.
So Crash Diet, they're what you would, I suppose the best way to describe them is glam, hair metal, sleaze, melodic, hard rock. That's probably about the best way I could describe them. They've had 5 albums since 2005, so relatively new as far as probably the people watch this channel are concerned. And their last album came out in 2019 called Rust, which was a brilliant album. The best album for me comes out of 2010, and that was Generation Wild. But something's got to be said about every album they brought out. Like I said, if you love your 80s, melodic, hard rock, glam, hair metal, whatever you want to call it, these are a great band. Check them out. Next up, under the category of C, we have Crimson Glory.
She wakes up to another day with everything going wrong. She wonders where she would be if she had never seen his face. She turns on the radio, but it's playing the same old song. She's pouring another drink to drown away the memory of it all. She can't wait another night, take another day. Doesn't want to be
Now, a lot of people might have heard of this band. You know, I'm sure a lot of people have who are watching this. But I got to give them a shout out. They're a band that never really made it, you know, as such, but they're highly thought of. So, American band, you would call them heavy metal, progressive elements a little bit. They were about in the 80s. That's when they first came out. If you want to compare them to any band, it's got to be Queensryche. And you know, they came out around about that time. One thing they did wear, which was a bit to make them stand out a little bit, I don't know, stand out. A lot of people were doing sort of gimmicks them days, but they did wear like masks of some kind, like they even part masks. So the singer wore a little bit of a mask around his face. You can look at that and check it up if you want. Just getting on to the singer, Midnight, who sadly passed away a while ago. What a great voice, man. Unbelievable voice. So in the vein of that Jeff Tate style. You know, the tone was similar. Could reach some amazing heights, just like Jeff Tate, if not higher. Absolutely amazing voice, Midnight. Outstanding. 4 studio albums out, that's all they've had. So not very prolific in the way of releases. 2 in the 80s, which were the best, which was Crimson Glory, the debut album, and one of the best albums recorded of all time. If you just want to check one album out of this band, Transcendence. Oh man, fuck. What a brilliant album from start to finish. From start to finish. You know, if we want to talk about perfect albums, that's the one. So, they then in the 90s, they brought out Strange and Beautiful. They sounded different. They were bringing different elements in. I can understand because of the 1991 was the time, difficult time. And then they brought out Astronomica a few years ago, probably about, I don't know, 10 years ago, which was an improvement. Probably a bit more than 10 years ago. It's an improvement, but not quite as good. And you might know this band more because Todd La Torre was in them for a little while. Only released one song, which was like a demo, but it sounded excellent, was Garden of Shadows, if you want to check that one out. That was in 2012. So, such a shame Todd didn't make any music with this band because his voice would have suited it down to the ground. One of the disappointments in metal, I suppose. But what we got was Queensryche with Todd La Torre instead. Man, well, you can't complain about that, can you? And absolutely brilliant band. Check out Crimson Glory. Okay, next up on my third band I want to talk about is Crazy Licks.
Live life like a renegade. Live your life like a rolling stone. Don't care about the mess you make, 'cause it's all your own. Won't be around for good. Life's too short, it's understood. So live like you want and not the way you should. 'Cause you got the freedom and you're in control. You got a choice to make, and it's all you need to know. If you wanna break out, break free. There's a new tomorrow where you're all that you can be. Break out, you'll see. Forget about your troubles. Live the life you're born to live. Break out.
Oh man, what a band. Another Swedish band in the same vein as Crash Diet, I've already spoken about. That glam, melodic hard rock. I suppose less. Have you met my other cat yet? This is another cat. By the way, I'm not like a sort of one of these, an old cat man. I know old cat ladies exist. I've got 3 cats, all right? That's not that bad. And a puppy and a guinea pig and a tortoise. Man, I'm old. I'm so old. Anyway, so we have Crazy Licks, getting back to Crazy Licks. So, formed in 2002, like I said, melodic hard rock, less sleazy than Crash Diet, more along the lines of melodic hard rock, glam-ish. So, 6 studio albums. Man, these are one of the top Swedish bands, and that's saying something because Sweden just produces some brilliant bands. Their last 3 albums have actually been fantastic, and the last one was called Forever Wild in 2019, so I'm expecting a new album very soon. New Religion also was an older album, which was one of their best. These guys are on the Frontiers label that produce, as you know, so many great bands. So Crazy Licks, man, I reckon they'll be coming back soon. They are fantastic. Check them out. And the 4th band I want to talk about is a band called Coney Hatch.
I look back, can't help thinking it wasn't so bad. Now the time has passed. It's funny how you change and rearrange, but a touch won't last. Time after time, I wish that I had got you. Time after time, oh, that I
So these came about in the 80s. Canadian melodic rock, melodic hard rock. 3 albums out in the 80s and then 1 in 2013. Nothing from them since. The best album for me by a long way, and this album played a huge part in me growing up in the 80s, was the Friction album in 1985. Man, check this album out. It's one of the best. This band is so overlooked. You know, you hear about them. They were quite highly thought of back then, but they came and went so quickly, you know. If you want to describe an album that gives you everything that the 80s, that you want from the 80s, if you was into that sort of melodic rock stuff, Friction is it. A great band, great musicians, great voice the guys got. Check them out as well. So I hope you enjoyed my category of C. Now, I'm loving it. Some people have been commenting, saying that they're finding new music because I'm showing snippets of these bands. And man, isn't that cool? Some people saying, you know, on the letter B that there's a band on there called The Brave that they're so glad I mentioned. So, you know, this is cool. This is really cool. It's actually turned out to be one of my favourite series because it's given everyone another look into some new music if you haven't seen these bands. So thank you very much for listening, and D is next. Can't wait.